Let's
Ready?
do this.
We are going to start with Judge Hannah Dugan. So, Anna, you want to set this one up for everybody? What's going on here?
Sure. So this story is definitely catching a lot of attention because of the fact that a judge got arrested by the feds because of the fact that she was unwilling to cooperate with ICE, which had a warrant to arrest and detain an undocumented immigrant who was actually being heard during this hearing because of the fact that he had severely beaten someone by punching them 30 times.
Oh, one was a woman, right? The guy's girlfriend he punched out.
Well, interestingly enough, there was two people tried to intervene as he was beating the crap out of this guy. The guy apparently asked him to turn the music down. He had, you know, the man in question is Eduardo Flores Ruiz. Entered the country illegally not once but 2 times.
Right.
And the reason why he was in court is because he severely beat someone, punched him in the face 30 times because the guy asked him to turn his music down. At that point, his girlfriend tried to intervene to stop it. He then proceeded to beat her, and then a third person intervened, and that third person was also assaulted by this guy. So basically, ICE showed up. They had a warrant to detain him as he was in court. But the judge, for whatever reason, thought it would be a great idea to assist him in evading ICE, allowed him to leave or exit the building through the juror's entryway, and then ICE basically had to chase the guy to detain him. A week later, the federal government decided, no, she needs to face charges, and they arrested her.
This is absolutely disgusting. Can we please show a picture of what the judge looks like so everyone can see who is masquerading as a servant of the justice system? This person is subverting everything in the name of, frankly, an illegal alien who should not be here. Look at her. I mean, come on. This is just, it's a complete desecration of everything that we believe in. And I'm speaking as a naturalized immigrant who came here the right way. I'm insulted. My family waited years to come here. We, like you, actually, like my friend Amy, we both did things the right way. We didn't hop the line. We didn't storm the southern border,
It cost a lot of money. It took a lot of time. And
came through JFK Airport. My family created hundreds of jobs. We weren't parasites or leeches on the system. This is the way it should be done.
Well, look, I think this particular case goes beyond someone simply entering the country illegally.
Right.
I also don't love using words like parasites to refer to human beings, but putting that aside, this is someone who has committed violent crimes, who has no problem literally punching someone in the face 30 times. Like, I get that left-wingers, Democrats, want to always do the opposite of what the Trump administration wants, but let's take a beat and really reevaluate what's being defended here by Democrats.
And why is it being defended? That is more so my
Yeah.
question. We understand that sometimes, just like legal citizens of this country, immigrants do terrible things. I agree. Maybe the parasitic label is going a little too far. However,
I don't think so in the case of wife beater.
I understand that, but I'm saying labeling immigrants overall. My question for you, being somebody who's more so on the left side of things, what is with the left's position to want to defend these people literally till the ends of the earth when parasitic behavior, and I'll give you that label for this person, is fully on display? Why do they want to defend it so much to the point that they're literally concealing and trying to get this person out of the judge chambers through a backdoor entrance?
I think the country had a problem with hyperpartisanship prior to Trump, but Trump basically took that issue and now it's on steroids. And so when your brain is so broken that you're unwilling to agree with the Trump administration on something that's totally agreeable, which is bringing this guy who's here illegally to justice and deporting him, you've lost the plot, right? So I'm in favor of immigration. I think that immigration is what makes this country great. Obviously, I want legal immigration. I also understand that some people are going to try to enter illegally. There are people here with undocumented status who have been here for decades, who have contributed to this country, who have contributed and been productive members of society.
I think we need Native American.
Yeah,
and literally, right?
Yeah, and
Armenian
we need to,
parents,
Armenian
immigrants.
parents. I mean, my parents came in legally, but look, I just think we have a broken immigration system, and I think we need to make it easier for people who want to come here and build, not only build lives for themselves, but contribute to making this country great. We need to have avenues in which they can do that legally.
That doesn't really exist right now.
It doesn't.
There
it
is
doesn't.
no
But that
middle
doesn't address the
ground.
fact that you cannot have these judges who are placed in positions of power acting like these like vigilante warriors. It's just so inappropriate. And Trump derangement syndrome is real.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for you here, though, for just a moment, because I happen to agree with all of you regarding this particular incident. However, I could point to several others. For example, a Trump-appointed judge, okay, and her name was, I believe it was like Stephanie Garrett. Does this ring a bell? She had a kid who was 20 years old, who crossed the border as an unaccompanied minor, forgive me. And they struck a deal with DHS where they said, listen, these kids are now applying for asylum. You can't deport any of them right now until their asylum case can be adjudicated.
Right.
The kid is not a gang member.
Right.
He was arrested once for drugs, not dealing drugs, doing drugs. And out of the country he goes, and a Trump-appointed judge was like, no, bring him back. Then you've got the gay makeup artist, who I briefly referenced yesterday. And this one, guys, I'm with you on 99% of this. But this is where Trump goes off the rails.
I agree with you on that. I agree
All right,
with
there's
you.
a kid, his name is Christian. He's a gay Venezuelan makeup artist, a theater enthusiast, comes over from, as mentioned, Venezuela, all right? And he gets scooped up by ICE because he has 2 tattoos that actually mean mother and father.
Correct, yeah.
But they misinterpret them as gang tattoos. He applied for asylum upon entering the country. They deport him to El Salvador, that's not his country, to a prison. He's not a criminal. Then it's ordered, bring him back.
Right.
And not just any
They
prison, the mega
won't
prison.
do it. And this is where I would say to anybody who's 100% for this mass deportation, what about that? Why is that happening? Someone answer that question
Because the
for me.
process is so slow right now that mistakes are bound to happen. Like, I think it's like a few 100,000.
There's the kid.
He's
There
deporting.
it is. That
Trump.
kid is gay. Does
I-
that
can I
look like a
give you-
friggin'
Wait,
gang
can I finish?
banger
Can
to
I
you?
please finish this?
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
So,
Go.
like, right now, Trump has made immigration his end-all be-all, but the rate is so slow because of this judicial slowdown.
Right.
He's encountering so many impediments. So he's trying to accelerate the process, and by virtue of that, mistakes are going to be made. But his base doesn't care. They don't care about a gay.
Let's talk about the mistake, though, Lindy. Let's talk about the mistake for a second, okay? Because we're talking about
But look
a
how gay
guy
this kid is.
who came into
This
the
is not a
country
gangbanger,
through
guys.
legal means, okay? Applied for asylum, did so through legal means. He's gay, and the reason why he fled Venezuela is because he was terrified that the Venezuelan gangs in Venezuela were going to kill him
Let me
because he's gay. So
respond
hold
to
on,
that.
let me finish my point. He had a legitimate asylum claim. And if you want to talk about like, oh, well, mistakes were made, we're talking about a guy who was sent to an El Salvadorian prison where he's probably being abused in all sorts of ways
even
because of
alive.
the fact that
We
he's
don't
gay.
even know if he's
Okay,
alive.
can we just take a step back and ask a broader question? I'm actually with Trump on this. It's one of the reasons why I left the Democratic Party, because my views on immigration have been shifting right. Why is it America's responsibility to grant asylum? Like, why? Why is it our responsibility to take people
It's written
in?
into law.
I mean, and it's
Like,
something
why
that
do we
was
need to?
revoked, right, with the new
Yeah, like, I
administration.
agree
However,
with
but what
that.
about the people who were already here? And like
We can grandfather them in.
Yeah, but he came in here
Let's
on
grandfather
legitimate
him in.
asylum claims,
Exactly.
and we had this conversation at dinner, and you were telling me about this. I nearly didn't believe you. I'm like, are you
No, I'm
sure he
sure.
didn't do
I'm
anything
sure.
wrong? No, Jillian, I know. I went home and I did my
Yeah.
own research, and honestly, I'm really saddened by this case, and we need to have some type of recourse in place where it should be measure twice, cut once. But in the instance where there are mistakes, we do need to have
Bring
a
him
system in place
back.
and recourse,
100%.
and especially
Get
for
him back.
And there's many people
What
who
the
are speaking
hell?
out about this.
Yes, I
Is
agree.
stopping you from saying, okay, we've got a big task at hand. You can even smear the Biden administration as much as you want. They let 300,000 people in a month. Millions came over. Tons of gotaways. If 1% of them are criminals, which I was told by Brandon Judd, who previously ran the border, that's too many. 140,000 criminals, Chinese national, like terrorists. We get it. Gang members, no good. But when someone goes, yeah, no, that guy, gay makeup artist, mistake, oops, sorry, bring him back.
And that's the thing.
That's
the thing that I don't really understand about this administration, because
don't
in
either.
the areas in which Trump was actually seen favorably, right, on immigration, for instance. He's actually now losing a lot of goodwill among Americans, independents in particular, who are like, yeah, this immigration issue under Biden is untenable and we need to do something about it. Trump comes in, he has a high approval rating when it comes to immigration policies. Because of these mistakes and the administration's unwillingness to right these wrongs and take ownership of their mistakes, he's starting to lose favorability on the areas in which he's most popular.
I think people are just so angry about what happened over the past 4 years.
Let's talk about why. Why don't we lay out why that's so bad for everybody? The difference of illegal immigration and legal immigration.
Exactly. Let's be honest about what happened here.
Right, very different.
And asylum, again, because coming in as a legal immigrant and coming in as a refugee and seeking asylum, completely different.
Let's talk about what happened.
Because why would you use the word parasite? Elaborate on that.
Well, I'm talking about why people are so angry right now.
I get it.
Because Biden fucked up. He truly did. And he lied to everybody saying that we needed a bipartisan immigration bill. No, we needed a president who was willing to actually, close our borders to make sure that we had a sensible immigration system. Biden just didn't do any of that. And he let all these millions of people in, and they're a drain on our resources. And I live in a big city, so I see it literally every day. You cannot tell me this isn't happening. I live in Philadelphia.
It is happening. We're seeing it in California with Gavin Newsom finding some sort of a loophole to use taxpayer dollars, which is meant to be illegal.
Yeah, I mean,
how did he figure this out?
He wanted to provide health care to undocumented immigrants in California, and honestly, he totally underestimated how much it would cost. And right now, the state's in a lot of financial trouble, partly because of that, partly because of mismanagement of funds. I mean, the state can't account for $24 billion they allocated for homelessness.
Insane.
Yeah, I mean, the state is a complete nightmare right now.
But when you're taking those dollars, and you've utilized some sort of a loophole, which I can't even fully understand. I looked it up once. In the future, we'll be on Grok. But he somehow, because technically, I guess federally, you are not allowed to do it.
Correct, right. But these are state resources.
That's
so
how
he's using state resources.
Jillian, you asked me why I use language like that because they are a drain on our system, and Americans need so much help right now.
Yes,
I want to take care of our own people because they're ailing. Our kids are going into deteriorating schools. We lack the resources to take care of our own people, and that's just my point of view.
I agree. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? And it's like we need to. I said that last night at dinner. We need to focus on ourselves and get ourselves in a great position where we are able to once again open up to asylum seekers and bring people over and help them. But if we can't even figure out what's going on in our own house, how are we meant to help everybody else at the same time? You brought up the bipartisan border bill. I think that is an important thing to touch on because so many people are like, hey, the Biden admin really tried to sort out the situation. I'd love to know what you think as someone who comes from the left, because wasn't that like an omnibus bill? And there was a bunch of like aid for Ukraine and a bunch of other things wrapped up inside that bill.
Yeah, they did include all sorts of provisions that weren't really related to reforming our immigration system.
Right.
Okay, so I'm actually of two minds on that issue because I think that the Biden administration totally neglected the border until it became a political liability. And then all of a sudden, he's reaching out to Republicans in the Senate, begging them to pass immigration reform.
Why was that necessary, though, when, by the swipe of a pen,
let me explain.
shut the border? And we should give him credit for that.
Sure, let me explain why, though. Let me explain. Because, yes, it is true, and we saw it happen. The executive branch has the unilateral power to make some pretty significant decisions at the border. However, as soon as a Democratic president gets elected, he or she can reverse all of it. That's why it's important for Congress to pass legislation that has staying power.
I understand.
But the thing is, it was such an emergency in my eyes, and in the eyes of millions of Americans around the country. We needed to stop this flood of migrants coming in. And I can't believe I'm playing this role, but I'm about to say something controversial again.
Do it.
Shocker.
So,
you're kidding.
The great replacement theory that they call neo-Nazi ideology.
Okay, explain for everyone what that is.
So for those who aren't familiar, it's the idea that Democrats are letting in millions of people from South America, Central America, random parts of the world, Africa, whatever. And they want to bring them into these Democratic strongholds, and they're registering them as voters to create this permanent, illegitimate electoral majority. And when Tucker Carlson said this, when other people said, when Elon said it, they labeled him as Nazi, as Hitler. I actually think it's happening.
I mean, you look at the state, when you look at all of the states that Harris won by sweeping majority, pretty much all of those, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's all of them were states that don't mandate any type of voter ID. And I'm really happy that like the SAVE Act, all of these things it still needs to go through the Senate.
What's wrong with voter ID? I just don't understand
nothing
what's
is
wrong
wrong.
with voter
That's
ID.
an excellent
nothing.
question,
Yeah.
and I
Is
see
wrong
that
with voter
completely.
ID.
However, as far as I understand it, and everyone correct me if I'm wrong, there's absolutely no proof that illegals were voting.
Yeah, it's a conspiracy theory.
Registering them as
I'm
voter
open
ID.
to evidence. I'd love to see the evidence.
Hold on. That's not what I meant. I mean, like, they have them in the country, and over the course of years,
right.
You know, I'm not saying
But
overnight they
Lindy,
become
these,
citizens.
These immigrants tend to be far more socially conservative than the Democratic Party is. In fact, increasingly so.
I mean,
But
a lot of them,
registering
yes,
as
especially ones that are
Democrats and
fleeing
citizens, yeah.
communist countries.
Yes,
However, but that's
they don't know
do you
that,
really
though.
think that's
Yeah.
a sweeping majority, though? When we
Yeah, I
look,
do actually.
I'm-
A lot of Latin American
Really?
when they come to
immigrants,
Philadelphia,
yes.
I mean, all the migrants that
they're
are being
all
shipped
very
to New York.
religious.
Hold on,
They're all very
But they
religious.
don't know that. They think that they don't know that Democrat, like, in their minds, they haven't been educated in the difference.
I think the Democratic Party they're the party of so-called do-gooders, and they want to feel good about themselves, and they want to feel like they're saving they want to believe that. I think that's really the motivating factor behind this, and more importantly, as soon as Donald Trump went down that escalator and started talking about Mexican and immigrants,
rapists,
that triggered Democrats, and they wanted to brand themselves as the party that's going to protect immigrants from Donald Trump. That's really at the center of this. Like the idea that they're importing people so they can stay in power. I mean, obviously it hasn't worked out.
Not importing people, letting them in. They were going to come anyway, just letting them in. And Democrats realized they spotted this as an amazing opportunity to solidify electoral gains.
Lindy, let me tell you something about Democrats, okay? And you should know this
I was
better
part
than
of leadership,
Hold
and I'm
on.
telling you that
exactly,
this is-
which is why you should know this better than anyone. The idea that they're thinking ahead and they're plotting and they're like the smart people who are like figuring out ways to stay in power forever is laughable.
It's a very obvious
They
thing
were
to do,
headed
by the way.
toward a freaking iceberg in the 2024 presidential election, and they were totally in the dark about
They're
it.
still
They're still in the dark about it.
But wait, hold on.
This is not a savvy party at all.
I just want to ask you guys one thing, though. Have you not seen the graph that shows what the turnout for voters in the 2020 election was like compared to all previous elections, compared even to the 2024 election as well? Because obviously people were more on
voters, right?
guard.
Millions more people voted.
Millions of more people voted. Do you think that just
Right, hold on, let
millions
me
of more
clarify.
Americans?
So the argument for a potentially, which I personally, I've seen no proof of it. However, the argument for a potentially rigged election in 2020, meaning Trump was robbed. By the way, he has not provided any evidence of that to this day.
Wait,
hold on. Is that okay? And you'll have your chance. Is that millions more people voted in 2020, which is what shifted the vote towards
I don't
Biden?
think that is a large part of it. That is a large
That's the
part of
argument.
it. There could have been other
actually-
mechanisms through which they cheated, but that is definitely a large part of it. You look at even California. The last time California was a red state was before a legislation was enacted that basically said if you come from an asylum-seeking family, migrants, you will not be entitled to any aid unless this democratic bill passes. And since then, California has been a blue state. And we are creating incentives within this country that
Incentives
are
are there.
bringing
This is what I would
people
ask
in who are coming in for. I agree with you. There are a lot of immigrants who are hardworking people who are going to contribute so much to this society. Exactly. However, the incentives are wrong, and now they're bringing in people who, when they look at the two options, one party's saying we're going to kick you out, and one's saying we're going to give you a $10,000 card.
Who do you think
to
they're
go
gonna
spend
pick?
as you
Okay,
will.
so-
Who are they going to
Okay,
vote
so hold
for?
on, so hold on.
And what is the caliber of people that are going to be attracted into the country when that is the
Grifters
main
and leeches.
messaging?
All right,
I mean,
wait,
they
hold
would-
that. Hold that. I want to add to that and then let you answer.
Okay.
So then, in continuing with that thought process, the argument is that in some states you can vote in local elections. In some places, if you're illegal, you can vote for a mayor or city councilman. Now, we all saw Obama come out and lobby for Karen Bass. I'm not saying where, I'm not sure
Okay.
where, but it is a thing in some states. if you're illegal, you can vote in like city elections?
There are some instances, I think in New York City,
keep going, though.
they potentially wanted to, and I don't know if this actually went through, allow legal residents who might not have full citizenship status to vote in local elections.
Hang on, I'm gonna keep going.
Okay.
And then you don't need the voter ID, so everyone's saying, well, that's highly suspicious. Why not? Which is like, why not?
I'm so sick of the voter ID debate. Like, let's just do the fucking voter ID and get over. Like, I'm done debating it. It's so annoying.
It's not a debate. The argument is this is why people think they're gaming elections. Otherwise, why do it?
No, I know. Just do it.
There's one more thing I want you to consider, only because I personally have a hard time contending with it. I'm also under the impression, and everyone correct me if I'm wrong, that you get more seats in Congress based on the size of your...
Ding, ding, ding.
That is true.
That is
true.
Okay, so then
based on the census.
Based on the census, illegal or not, so you could technically make any president in power a lame duck if you control Congress, right? So that's the argument, although there's no proof
Jillian,
of it.
that is no, but Jillian, you have the proof, though. You have the proof because they are fighting so hard to commandeer the census and the way people are counted. You hit on a jackpot like unwittingly because these Democrats, they are trying so hard to make sure that illegals are counted in the census. Republicans are doing the exact opposite. You see what I mean?
That's the tough part, Anna. That's the part where I'm like, it does seem pretty friggin' conspiratorial. Why have all of these things? Come on in. If you open borders, just because we can't get a bipartisan bill, baloney. No ID. Why? Weird. Oh, here's all these incentives: free healthcare, interest-free loans,
free hotels, free cash.
Bizarre. And who's the party giving it away? The Democrats. And then, by the way, you get more seats in Congress. It is a little bit like, I get it's tin hat because we don't have hard proof of it. But there's a lot there.
There's a ton
and look,
of
it depends. Like, what we're
levels.
talking about is state policy, not federal policy.
They're all coordinating.
Because there is a federal ban. Hold on, Lindy. Because there is a federal ban on public dollars going toward undocumented immigrants. But on a state level, yeah, you're right.
Newsom giving away health care.
So I agree with you when it comes to states like California. Yes, it is incentivized to come into the country illegally. I agree. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for watching Her Take. If you like the show, can you help us out by subscribing to the channel, clicking the notification button, sharing, commenting, joining the conversation? It helps us out a ton with the algorithm. We appreciate you.